All right, awesome. Sophia, how are you, my dear? It's so good to have you again for round two.
Hi, Shauna. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah. Are you already back from Portugal? You were in that tropical island paradise like a couple days
Yep,
ago, right?
yep. I was in Madeira, which is just well, it's not just off the coast of Portugal. It's actually pretty far off the coast of Portugal. It's closer to Morocco than it is Portugal, but it's super cool. I recommend it to everyone here. If you haven't been there, it's really nice. And they also have a digital nomad village, which I thought was really interesting.
I heard about that. I heard like that's the new like digital nomad hotspot. Well, I want to
Yeah.
give you a proper introduction. Everybody, please help me welcome Sophia Titley. She's here with Live and Invest Overseas, which is like the #1 publication for living overseas and investing overseas. And she's the editorial director. And is it for all of Live and Invest Overseas, or is it I believe so, right? The LIOS is the abbreviation, right, for Live and Invest
Yeah,
Overseas.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So she is the editorial director for Live and Invest Overseas. And she was born, and your story is so interesting. You were born in Singapore, but grew up in Indonesia and Saudi Arabia. And you've lived
Hmm.
in Canada, Spain, Colombia, Panama, and most recently the UK. And you
Yes.
studied political science and Spanish at at UBC, which is in Vancouver.
Hmm.
And aside from travel, you like salsa dancing like me and new recipes. I love this. I'm like,
I
what?
see you found my bio somewhere.
Yeah,
You got all the details.
I found it and I wanted to share it with everyone.
Thank
So,
you for sharing that.
yeah, so it sounds like you've literally been everywhere. How is that? How have you been able to travel all over?
Yeah, so definitely I'm one of those freaks in in the nice sense of the word who's just kind of I've just been on the move basically since I was born. So I'm Canadian, like you said, but I was born overseas and I've lived in different countries my whole life, and that is just my normal. I don't think about it as something that's unusual. Although, of course, friends and family are like, "Where are you going? Why are you going there? What
Yeah.
country is that?" But for me, it's really just the normal.
Wow, wow, wow. So can you tell us like what do you do for Live and Invest Overseas? Like what does it mean to be an editorial director? And what I mean by that is like what's your day to day? What's the kind of things that you're working on?
Right. So as editorial director, I'm in charge of the editorial department, and Live and Invest Overseas is a publishing house, and we have a range of uh, content types, basically. So from free daily e-letters that just land in your inbox every day to paid subscription services and reports and social media and one-off written products as well. That's kind of our bread and butter of the stuff that we produce. And being in charge of the editorial department means coordinating with a network of people. There's like a core group of us as editors in the company, and then we have this far-flung network of contributors and experts. And you're mentioning just a second ago like tax accountants and residency lawyers and specialists all over the world, which is really great. And we kind of leverage all that knowledge and we put it into our products just based on what's the most relevant at that time and what we think people should know about.
It's awesome. It seems like
And
you
so,
guys have so many like people on the ground. That's what I love. Like
yeah,
you're
definitely.
just, and I think your life sounds so fun. And that's why I kind of wanted to ask you is like, what are you doing on the day to day? Because yesterday, well, it seems like just 3 days ago, I read one of the emails and it said that you were in Madeira, Portugal, doing some work on the ground. So what does it
Mhm.
look like, for example, your trip to Madeira? What were you doing over there, and kind of like what insights were you able to capture from that trip?
Yes, so that's one of the perks of my job. I get to travel quite a bit, and I had pitched Madeira to the core team as a potential retirement destination because our audience is mainly retirees, um, as well as investors. So I wanted to go there and just see what the potential of Madeira was as a retirement destination. I'd heard really good things, and I put that forward to the decision makers, and they said go for it. And they're very, open and eager to learn about new places. And it's really important for us to not only go there ourselves, but also have local contacts. So part of the trip is also meeting people, establishing those connections. Like I met with the coordinator of the Digital Nomad Village,
Nice.
did an interview with her, because we want the content that we deliver to be more than things you could just Google, if you know what I mean. It's not just like, what's the weather like? It's people's opinions. That's the really valuable part. It's the insights that you can't get from searching a place online.
I love that. That's so cool. What is this digital nomad village? This is so interesting. I know we have a lot of business owners in here. Do we have any digital nomads? Do we have remote workers? Is anybody looking to take like their business overseas and just work from anywhere? Because this digital nomad village sounds incredible. Can you kind of let us know, if you're able to, what kind of information you got from that? And like, also, what is it? What is a digital nomad village?
Sure. So Madeira is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it's popular with older folks from Europe for walking and hiking trips. But during the pandemic, obviously, all of that went down the drain, and they lost their main source of income, which is that type of tourist, the older folks who like to go walking. So they thought they're really innovative. I think Portugal is pretty good about coming up with stuff quickly. So it launched a digital nomad visa, and Madeira thought that they could make the case as a destination for digital nomads. And they invested in all this infrastructure like co-working spaces. They've got super fast internet, and they also adapted. So they changed their kind of business model from the type of tourists that I just mentioned to people who are becoming with their laptops and doing work. So for instance, a cafe owner would invest in putting in a bunch more outlets in their space, and also just adapting their mindset. And they launched this in February 2021. The coordinator told me they've had 16,000 people register, but they have 9,000 currently living there, 9,000 digital nomads.
Wow.
At least 9,000, because not everyone registers when they show up as a digital nomad. And basically what you get is access to a community via this Slack channel that they've organized, where they put information about apartments for rent, or how to buy property, or here's a really good residency lawyer, or whatever useful tidbits you might need. And then there's an actual village where they have a big public co-working space, and you can just show up there and work from that space. And a lot of the digital nomads base themselves there because it's just a really nice town, and it's nice to have that network when you show up.
So you're saying there's a public co-working area that's free?
Yes, and it's in the sun. It's a beautiful plaza. There's a beach just down the street. It's amazing.
Sounds like paradise.
It is really nice. It's really, really nice.
Happy you were able to do that. And were you able to kind of like, well, you were obviously working, so you used some of the spaces and were able to like, your user experience will basically serve as one of the testimonials too, on Live and Invest Overseas.
Yeah, and you don't even actually have to be a digital nomad to go and take advantage of everything I just mentioned, like the Slack channel. They're really happy for anyone to show up and use it. As long as you're willing to register, you can get access to this really valuable resource and source of intel, as well as social connections.
I think a lot of people are in here interested in Portugal. Is anybody considering Portugal? Please put yes in the chat. Diane just asked, what is the cost of average accommodation to rent a small apartment there for a month, approx, if you have any data on that?
Yep. So a one bedroom, I was quoted from 600 to 1,000 euros, which locals were saying is on the expensive end. They said prices are really high at the moment. For me, I'm living in London, so that sounds amazing. Sounds like a dream. You can't get a bedroom for that amount here. So a whole apartment for 600 to 1,000 euros. It just depends on your point of reference, I guess.
Sounds pretty incredible for an island.
Yes, definitely.
So really in nice terms place. Of like Live and Invest Overseas hotspots, like what are the best places to live right now? I know that there's many, but I guess, our audience here, some of them are looking to retire. Some of them have their own businesses and want to go, work remote from anywhere, what would you say, just like from all your travels, from everything you guys are writing about right now and all the research you're doing, what would be those hotspots?
So it kind of depends on what you're after. For retirement, we put out our annual Retire Overseas Index every year. And this year we named a small beach town in Panama as the #1 place in the world to retire. It's called Chitre, and it's on the Pacific coast of Panama. And it's basically just like a back to basics, simple, wholesome small town near the beach where you can live all in for about $600 a month. So it's really affordable. And Panama is one of our OG retirement destinations because it's so stable.
Mm,
So when things were looking a little bit rocky economically in the United States, we were thinking, okay, people should look to a place that is not easily, uh, how do I say it? Like shaken up by economic turbulence.
right.
And Panama is really solid. It has the Panama Canal, which is a really big source of income for the country. It's got other big infrastructure projects, and it tends to do really well, all things considered, in times of economic uncertainty. So that was our top pick for retirement specifically. If you are a younger person looking to socialize and have a vibrant, active city lifestyle, it may not be the right place for you. It's pretty
Right.
sleepy. Portugal's poppin' always. Portugal is so popular. It's never been more popular. Um, and obviously there's some downsides with that. It has gotten a lot more expensive, and there's some issues locally with housing supply. So the big influx of people from all over the world, but a lot of Americans as well. Unfortunately, locals have kind of been priced out of housing in big cities like Lisbon and Porto.
Right.
But they are amazing places to live, such a high quality of life. I love Spain as well. I've thought about Spain a lot. Spain is so diverse. Like you can have so many different lifestyle types
Yes.
depending on where in the country you go. I know you mentioned Bilbao. So different from Malaga, for instance, where Seppi was.
Yeah.
Um, it has big cities. There's Barcelona. There's islands as well. Spain
Bilbao,
has a lot.
I agree that like Spain has so many different types. Like um Bilbao is very adventurous and sporty, and it's surfing. I mean, I took a surf class there, but it's raining all the time in the winter. But then when the sun comes out, it's beautiful and it looks like the coasts of England with the cliffs, or it looks like
Mhm.
Ireland. It's so crazy. And it also has like a similar, I guess, Viking culture, you could call it, because
Right.
they're really close to each other. So they have the same, is it the symbols and the way that they write their letters is very similar. So it's really interesting to see the history and how a lot of these places are really similar to each other. Um, when you said you were considering Spain, did you mean for yourself or like for others?
Um, Both. I
Ah,
love Spain. It was one of the places I did a stint there a while back. Um, and I don't know, I just think when it's extra cold and dreary here, I think, I don't have to be here. Nothing is really keeping me here. I'm a remote worker.
exactly.
And Spain is one place I consider a lot. And I speak Spanish and I have some friends there, so it'd be really easy to just do it.
Come on over. You have two friends who are Spain fanatics.
Yay, perfect.
Can I ask you, you said Chichre. Chichre is the Retire Overseas Index beach town in Panama on the
Yeah.
Pacific Coast. Chichre. How do you spell it?
CHIR, sorry, CHITRE,
CRE. Okay.
Chitre.
I spelled it wrong, but that's really good insight. You said $600 a month. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be a minimalist lifestyle. That's what's possible. It's not necessarily what everyone would do. If you want, a more comfortable, well-rounded lifestyle, maybe have budget like $1,000 US. 600 be quite minimalistic.
of course, like that would be like no travel on the weekends. You're literally just in the town all day, like
Yes.
making meals at your home, probably.
Well, yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So question, some people are asking in the chat about more about Panama. I know you said that that was the most stable and it is like the top pick for the retirees. Ingrid is asking how safe is Panama? And that I know comes up a lot. What's your take on it?
I personally, I find it very safe. There's obviously pockets in Panama City. It's really only Panama City as the big city in the country. There's pockets that you wouldn't go to, and you avoid, late at night by yourself with your phone in your hand type of places. But across the country, I find it to be really safe. Never had a problem there. I've never felt threatened. I lived there for 2 years, and
Right.
then I keep going back because the company's actually based there. So I'm there quite often.
Interesting.
And I feel more unsafe here in London than I do there, if that helps.
Okay. That really helps. And I'm sure it'd be the same for like LA. You don't
Yeah.
want to walk around at night especially as a female, which
Mhm.
what about So this is what my take is. When I'm in Barcelona and you're like taking the metro really late, everybody's walking around at night. Is that the same situation in Panama? And when I'm saying Panama, maybe I'm referring to Panama City, because that's probably where you're going to be doing things at night. And just as a female, like, is it okay to walk around at night or
It's
kind of
it's
sketchy?
not really a walkable place. It's kind of a car dependent place. People don't even walk across the street. They they drive everywhere, and it's very highway based. So for walking around for anyone, it's not really an option unless you're just staying inside one neighborhood and going, down the road. It's
Right.
not really a walking type of place.
Okay. What about like in the highlands, like Buquete? Is that way safer than, say, like a big city?
Yeah, it's super safe. It's just a sleepy little town where not a lot happens. Although it is kind of picking up in popularity. Not to say that that makes it less safe, but it's had its own little digital nomad surge in population recently. So it used to be one of the world's top retirement destinations, and you could feel that and see that when you were there, the demographic. But now things are changing, and it is attracting some younger people. And I would
That's
say just generally very safe as well.
awesome. Now I want to like just really quick, guys. Sophia is giving away for Live and Invest Overseas a free access to one of their conferences that they normally charge for. So I'm dropping it right here. Can you kind of give a background as to what this free conference is, Sophia?
Yes, for sure. So it would actually be any of our upcoming conferences. It's a virtual pass. It's not an if you choose one that is an in-person event, the what we're giving away here is just the virtual attendance. And we have about a conference or workshop per month. So we cover our core destinations, and then we do theme-based conferences as well. So we have one coming up dedicated to making money overseas. We have one dedicated to property investment. And then in terms of destinations, we go through kind of all of our classic countries. So we earlier in this year, it was Panama, Belize. We'll have a Mexico one. We have a Montenegro workshop, which should be interesting. I'm actually leading that one.
Ooh, that
Um,
sounds fun.
yeah, should be
Cool.
cool.
I want to
It'll
come
be
to
my
that
hosting that one. Yeah, it's May 25th.
one.
So I guess if you just put your email down, we could send you the options and you can just choose from there, but it's a free virtual pass.
Yeah, so I would definitely get that. I mean, the more insights you guys can grab here, that's literally why we're here. Feel free to raise your Zoom hand as we shift into the live Q&A in a couple minutes. Raise your Zoom hand. Sophia is a wealth of knowledge. I mean, she's literally lived everywhere. And then Montenegro, we haven't even talked about that. That is such a beautiful place. I haven't been there. Do they also have good visa routes for people?
They have some interesting ones. So the one that we put forward most to our readers, it's a unique option whereby you can invest in property of any value and get residency. And that's what our readers tend to do because you could literally buy a property for 50,000 euros or something like that. It's very affordable. And Montenegro is interesting because it's on the cusp of entering the EU. So if you can get in before that happens, which could be as soon as 2025, but will probably be 2030 at the latest, then you could kind of get a backdoor to EU residency and maybe citizenship down the line if you stay there for long enough.
Okay.
And if everyone's been just paying attention, some of the similar invest for residency options around Europe have we've lost some options. So Portugal went away recently. Ireland had one that they eliminated. Spain, who knows, maybe they'll keep theirs around for a bit longer, but that's what makes Montenegro really interesting right now.
Awesome. Cool. Does anybody have any question? Oh, I see a question here in the chat. Lena is asking, what kind of investments can you make in other countries besides purchasing property? That's a really good one. Thanks, Lena.
Well, the main ones that we deal with are property and agricultural investments. But I feel like there are tons of options. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Yeah, those are the main ones that we deal with. I think that you could find any type of investment that you were interested in.
So if somebody is more interested on like that question that Lena had, the investment side that's not property, how can they get more insights on that? Or is there anything you guys are hosting, workshops, anything so people can know where to invest?
Yeah, so maybe the Make Money Overseas conference would be beneficial. It will
Okay.
have a lot of experts on the panels, people who know a lot more about it than me personally.
Okay.
So that could be a good option.
Awesome. Cool. Let's see. Do you have a link to the Montenegro program? I was looking and only saw 200K investments or more.
I don't have a link to it now, but I was there in November on a similar sort of scouting trip to what I was doing in Madeira. And I was speaking to real estate agents and developers, and that's kind of what we talked about. So going off of their intel for that.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Jessica, remember she's giving away the free conference, and at that point, when you guys like put in your email, Sophia will get in touch with you guys to ask which conference you want to go to, and then at that point, she can provide you with the right links for whichever one you choose. Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to raise your Zoom hand. You don't have to put your email now. I'm sending you guys the form, and then you're going to fill it in there. So I know somebody just put their email, but that's okay. All right. I have another question to like wrap this up. So actually two more. So what are like the main fears and struggles and concerns that you see from your audience when they're planning their move abroad?
So the number one question I think we get is about the expense involved. And I think for our audience's demographic, the older folks, they might see it as moving overseas as something that is only accessible to ultra wealthy people, which we think is backwards. Basically, you have to be rich nowadays to retire in the United States, and you can access a much better quality of life at a lower cost if you're willing to kind of think outside the box or think outside of Florida and Arizona for retirement. Just keep going a little bit further south to Mexico or Belize or maybe Panama or Colombia. So that's the main one, is about the cost, and we do a lot to try to change people's perceptions about that. A lot about safety as well, specifically women and single older women who might dream about moving overseas, but they're worried about safety. And again, it's kind of a backwards question because in the United States, it tends to be a lot less safe than a lot of the countries that we speak about. It's just more the unknown factor that people are concerned about. So you might name some small town in Portugal and say people just assume that it's far off and completely unknown to them, and therefore any sort of security related issue would be much more scary, when really I think you're much better off, you're much safer in some of these other countries that we speak about, especially Portugal. Portugal is extremely safe.
Portugal and Spain is just so safe, especially as a woman. I'm so glad you brought that up about the single ladies that want to go move abroad. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I chose Spain, is because I feel so safe. And then I come back to LA and I'm just like, I can't go to downtown LA and park like a mile away and walk for fear of being stabbed. I mean, this is a literal thing that's happening. So, I mean, I think it's really good that you brought that up, because they are misconceptions, and you guys just need to learn like come to our events, like come and soak up all the knowledge so that you can bust those myths, because they're myths and they're just, you know, the news. They're gonna definitely make you think that things are extreme. And
Exactly.
like
The US.
the movie Hostel. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, I never saw that. I can't watch anything scary.
Talks about if you go stay in the narrative is stay in a hostel, get kidnapped. And so nobody wants to go stay in a hostel. And this is normally for like younger travelers, but still that is the misconception is I can't stay in a hostel because I'm gonna get kidnapped, because Europe is all, you know, has this whole, which is true, there's gonna be crime everywhere, but that's just, I'm so happy you brought that up. So thanks for sharing. And then does anybody else have any questions? I see Jose, what about the feeling of distance from the family? And I think this will be the last question when we wrap this up in like the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, that one is really tough. I would say you don't have to, you know, move and then never come back. You can continue to visit and have people visit you. That is a really big one with our readers, but we say you might actually see your grandkids more often because you're living in a cool place by the beach in Belize or something like that. But that's a significant concern. I would say nowadays it's easier than it ever has been to see people and to keep in touch. But yeah, that one is just tough, unfortunately. I would just factor in your budget, some trips back home, and have people come see you as well, as much as you can.
Definitely. Awesome. And then what's your final secret, like words of wisdom for people that are on the fence or overwhelmed? Like what last secret would you want to give them so they can make their move in under 12 months?
I would say there's a solution to every single problem. And if there isn't, there's some sort of cottage industry set up in some place that is designed to help tackle that problem. So if you're thinking about moving to Thailand, for instance, and you're wondering what type of residency to get, and you're bumping into problems, just know that you're not the only one who's bumping into those problems. And in that country especially, there's probably a whole side hustle industry dedicated to helping you sort that out. And if something seems like a roadblock, there's always a way around it. There's always a workaround. I don't mean anything illegal or anything like that. I just mean if you're dedicated enough, you'll figure it out. And that has been my method of making, I don't know how many moves at this point, but I just decide that I'm going, and then I just start chipping away at all the steps that you need to take to get there.
That's good. Yeah, problem solution, guys. That's all you have to know to master this. Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Sophia, for being with us. I wanted to introduce you to Daniel. He's with the Noma Collective. So I know you're doing a lot of like digital nomad scouting in different countries. You definitely should connect with Daniel after this because he's running some awesome digital nomad communities like around the world. So I wanted to introduce you guys.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Likewise. I see you mentioning Belize a fair bit. That's
yes.
I'm a big fan.
Oh, cool. For digital nomads or just in general?
We started our first co-live was in Belize actually, and so it's kind of where our whole dream started. And I'm actually a resident in Belize, so I've been through the process, and it's easier than you think, and it's one of those countries that you don't think about, and then you start looking, and then you go, oh my God, there's a lot of beauty and great people, and super close to the States, speaks English. There's a lot of pluses, but I totally echo everything you're saying in terms of just make the jump. That's what I always say to people. The hardest decision is the decision to do it. And then once you're on the road, then everything else kind of falls into place. And if it doesn't, then maybe it's not the right one and you look down another path. So 100% on that one.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, nice to meet you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sophia. Let's give a big thank you to Sophia in the chat. And again, I've pasted her free gift. So make sure you guys go get that free conference. And I'll see you soon, Sophia. It was so good to see you.
Thanks, Shauna. Speak to you soon.
You.